What if I told you that one of America's greatest writers almost didn't survive past childhood, and the very hardships that nearly killed him became the fuel for stories that changed literature forever? Please stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll discover how a boy from a tiny Missouri town turned tragedy into a timeless treasure. November 30th, 1835. In the tiny frontier town of Hannibal, Missouri, a baby boy is born 2 months premature. He's so small, so fragile, that nobody expects him to survive. His mother, Jane Clemens, looks at this tiny infant and thinks he won't make it through the winter. But this baby? He's a fighter. His name is Samuel Langhorne Clemens, and he's going to become Mark Twain, one of the greatest storytellers America has ever known. Sam grew up in Hannibal, a bustling river town on the banks of the mighty Mississippi. It's a place where steamboats whistle and lumber rafts float by, where cave adventures and treasure hunts aren't just stories, they're everyday life, where kids run barefoot through the streets and swim in the river until dark. But Sam's childhood isn't all adventure and freedom. When he was just 11 years old, his father died suddenly. The family is broke. Sam has to leave school and go to work as a printer's apprentice. His formal education ended in the 5th grade. Think about that for a second. 5th grade. And yet this boy will grow up to write some of the most brilliant sentences in the English language. He'll become friends with presidents and inventors. He'll travel the world and make people laugh until they cry. As a teenager, Sam works as a printer, setting type and reading everything he can get his hands on. He teaches himself through the newspapers and books he prints. Every word he sets in type becomes part of his education. Then, at 21, Sam makes a decision that changes everything. He becomes a steamboat pilot on the Mississippi River. For 4 years, he navigates that treacherous, beautiful, constantly changing river. He memorizes every bend, every sandbar, every landmark along 1,200 miles of water. And it's here, on the river, that he hears a phrase that will become his identity. When the riverboat crew measures the depth of the water, they call out, "Mark Twain," which means 2 fathoms deep, safe water for the boat to pass. Years later, when Sam starts writing humorous stories for newspapers, he needs a pen name. And he remembers that river call. Mark Twain, safe passage. It's perfect. But here's what makes Mark Twain's story so incredible. Everything that hurt him became material. His father's death, it taught him about loss and resilience. His lack of formal education, it made him skeptical of pretension and sympathetic to ordinary people. His years as a printer, they taught him the craft of clear, powerful writing. His time on the river, it gave him the setting for his masterpieces. In 1876, Mark Twain published The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. It's an instant sensation. Adults laugh. Children see themselves in Tom's mischief. The whitewashing fence scene becomes one of the most famous passages in American literature. Then, in 1884, came his masterpiece, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. It's revolutionary. Written in dialect, in the voice of an uneducated river boy, it captures the soul of America like nothing before it. Ernest Hemingway would later say, "All modern American literature comes from one book by Mark Twain called Huckleberry Finn." But Mark Twain isn't just a novelist. He's a humorist, a social critic, a lecturer who fills auditoriums. He's the first prominent American writer to be funny. Really, genuinely, laugh-out-loud funny. He writes about pompous politicians and ridiculous social customs. He skewers hypocrisy and champions the underdog. He makes people think while they're laughing. One of his most famous lines, "I have never let my schooling interfere with my education. The boy who left school in 5th grade became one of the most educated men in America." Mark Twain lived to be 74 years old. He survives the premature birth that should have killed him, outlives most of his children, loses fortunes and makes them back, and becomes the most famous writer in the world. When he dies in 1910, the entire nation mourns. But here's what's truly amazing. Over a century after his death, we're still reading his books, laughing at his jokes, and learning from his wisdom. Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn are as alive today as they were 150 years ago. So here's what I want you to think about today. Samuel Clemens was born into poverty. He lost his father as a child. He had to drop out of school. By every measure, he was set up to fail. But he turned every disadvantage into fuel. Every hardship became a story. Every setback became wisdom. He didn't let his circumstances define his limits. What obstacles are you facing right now that feel like dead ends? What limitations are you accepting as final? What if those very things are actually the raw material for your most significant contributions? Mark Twain didn't have fancy credentials. He didn't have money or connections. What he had was curiosity, determination, and the willingness to turn his life into lessons for others. And here's the other lesson. He told his stories, he wrote them down, he shared them. Imagine if Samuel Clemens had lived that fascinating life but never picked up a pen. The world would have lost Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn, and thousands of brilliant observations about human nature. What stories from your life deserve to be told? What experiences have shaped you that could inspire or help someone else? Maybe you didn't grow up on the Mississippi River, but you've navigated your own challenging waters. Perhaps you didn't become a steamboat pilot, but you've learned skills that matter. Your story matters, not because you're famous, but because you're real. Because somewhere, someone needs to hear that obstacles can be overcome, that education comes in many forms. It's never too late to create something meaningful. Drop a comment below and tell me what hardship in your life taught you something valuable. What obstacle became your unexpected teacher? Share your story, because this community celebrates resilience, creativity, and the courage to turn pain into purpose. Have you thought about writing down your own adventures, the challenges you've overcome, the wisdom you've gained from the unexpected turns in your life? You don't need to write the next great American novel, but your children and grandchildren deserve to know how you navigated your Mississippi, whatever river that might be. Mark Twain once said, "The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why." He found his why in storytelling, in taking the rough edges of his life and polishing them into something beautiful and lasting. If this story inspired you, then you absolutely need to join the History Sparks community. Every single day, we're bringing you stories of people who turned adversity into art, obstacles into opportunity, setbacks into success. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring that notification bell, because tomorrow we've got another incredible story about someone who refused to let circumstances define their destiny. Don't just consume these stories. Let them challenge you. Let them show you what's possible when you refuse to accept limitations, when you take your experiences, however painful or humble, and transform them into something that matters. Share your resilience stories in the comments. Tell me about the time you turned a setback into a comeback. Tell me about the unexpected lesson that changed your path. Let's celebrate the truth that our greatest strengths often come from our deepest struggles. I'll see you tomorrow with another story that'll remind you that greatness doesn't require perfect circumstances. It requires determination, creativity, and the courage to share your journey with the world. Until then, keep sparking those stories. Keep turning your life into lessons. Keep creating your legacy, one word at a time.